Stop counting your daily protein. I will earn that sentence before this video is over. But if you are past 60, eating well, walking most days, and the belly is still sitting there while your arms get thinner, the problem is almost certainly not how much protein you eat, but where it lands. 13 weeks. That is how long one group of older adults spent inside the trial I want to open with. Average age 63. All of them eating 600 calories a day below what they burned. All of them lifting weights 3 times a week. Both groups lost the same weight. Both groups lost the same fat. But one group finished those 13 weeks with 400 grams more muscle than they started with, and the other finished with 500 grams less. Same deficit, same lifting, 900 grams apart. The only thing separating them was how much protein arrived and when. So understand what that means about you. This is not a motivation problem, and it is not a discipline problem. You have plenty of both, or you would not be watching a video about protein on a weekday morning. It is a placement problem. Let me defend the thing I just told you to stop doing. Counting your daily protein is not wrong. The target you have been aiming at is real, and the effort you spent hitting it was real effort. Nobody sold you a lie. But your body does not read your day as a total. It reads your day as a series of separate meals, and it decides at each one, on the spot, whether anything happens at all. That is the arrangement, not the amount. There is a door in this, and most people close it before they start. The symptom is quiet, which is why nobody treats it as a symptom. The scale drifts down a little, while the waistband does not move. Opening a jar gets harder. You stand up out of a low chair, and something in you negotiates first. That is not age arriving on schedule. That is muscle leaving, while the fat stays, and it is exactly the split that trial was built to catch. The mechanism has a name, and once you have it, you cannot unsee it. It is called the meal threshold, and a review in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition lays it out plainly. There is a floor of protein inside one single meal, roughly 20 to 30 grams, that has to be cleared before your body runs muscle building at full strength. Below the floor, the meal is just food. Above it, the meal is a signal. Picture a kettle with a line stamped inside it. Fill it below the line and the element sits uncovered. You can click that switch all morning and never get tea. Fill it past the line and it boils. There is no in-between, and 4 splashes do not add up to 1 boil. Your day holds 3 or 4 of those kettles. There are 4 ordinary, sensible, well-reviewed behaviors that keep every one of them under the line, and not one of them looks like a mistake while you are doing it. I am naming all 4 before I give you a single instruction. And there is a ceiling on this too, a point where more protein stops buying you anything, which I will hand you near the end, because the people who overshoot it are usually the ones trying hardest. Interceptor 1 is the one nobody wants to hear, because it is the healthiest looking thing you do all day. It is your breakfast. Not a bad breakfast, a praised one. Oats, fruit, a slice of whole grain toast, tea. Every item on that plate has earned its reputation honestly, and I am not taking any of it away from you. But look at what that meal is built out of. It is carbohydrate with a little fat and a trace of protein along for the ride, a kettle filled to a quarter. So the first threshold of your day, the one arriving after 8 or 9 hours of no food at all, goes uncleared. The review is specific on this point. The threshold rises with age, and it rises with sitting still, so the exact meal where most of us put the least protein is the meal that now demands the most. The oats are not the problem. The absence beside the oats is the problem. And I want to say the obvious thing out loud, because it matters. If this has been happening in your kitchen for 10 years, you were not being lazy. You were doing precisely what you were told, in the order you were told to do it. Somebody watching this has been eating a careful breakfast every morning since retirement, tracking the days, doing the walk, and getting nothing back. Nothing about that is your fault. Video Interceptor 2 is the one this whole video is named after. It is the daily total. The habit itself is sound. Adding up your protein across a day is how every guideline is written, and it is how every app on your phone reports it. So of course that is the number in your head. but a total hides the shape of a day, and the shape is what your muscle actually responds to. Watch how it plays out. A light breakfast, a light lunch, then a genuinely large dinner with a proper piece of meat on the plate. Add it up and the day looks good, but live it and you cleared one threshold out of 3. The trial I opened with did not raise anyone to an extreme intake. The group that gained muscle averaged 1.11 grams of protein per kilo of body weight per day. The group that lost muscle averaged 0.85. That is a small distance on paper, and it is 900 grams of muscle in a body. The total is not the problem. The pile is the problem. Interceptor 3 is a fear, and it is a reasonable one. You are not hungry in the morning, and you suspect that forcing food in early just means more calories in a day you are trying to shrink. Half of that is true, so I will not pretend otherwise. A meta-analysis in Advances in Nutrition pooled 22 studies in healthy adults over 60 and found that a protein preload does dull your appetite at the very next meal, but not enough to pay for itself. Once the supplement's own calories were counted, total intake came out higher, by about 650 kilojoules. That is the honest short-term answer, and the long-term answer from the same analysis is the one that changes what you do. In the studies that ran for months rather than hours, protein intake rose by about 0.29 grams per kilo per day, and total daily calories at the end of the trial had not significantly changed. People absorbed the protein into the day instead of stacking it on top. The calories are not the enemy here, the stacking is. This is most invisible of the 4, because it is not something you eat. It is protein with nothing asking for it. A meta-analysis in sports medicine pooled 9 controlled trials in adults, with an average age between 61 and 79. Protein supplementation on top of resistance training produced a real, statistically significant gain in fat-free mass compared with training alone. The same analysis found no significant extra effect on strength on its own, and I would rather tell you that than sell you the version where every arrow points up. That is the 4. A breakfast built without protein, a day counted as a total, a fear of the extra calories, and protein arriving with no demand waiting for it. None of them is a bad habit. All 4 of them close the same door. So let me start the clock, because the door is not open all day, and the way it closes is stranger than most people expect. Why does this land on your middle in particular? Because a calorie deficit is a request for material, and your body has 2 accounts it can draw that material from. It can take it out of fat, including the deep fat packed around your organs, or it can take it out of muscle. Both of them pay. Nothing in your diet tells it which account to use. The protein signal does. Let me be straight about the evidence, because you will hear a lot of confident claims about belly fat, and most of them are decorated. These trials measured fat mass and lean mass. They did not scan anyone's abdomen and watch a specific deposit shrink. What they measured is the split, and the split is the whole game after 60. It decides whether the weight you lose comes off your waist or comes out of your legs. And there is a shift that narrows this window, which is the part almost nobody tells you at 60. The same review that named the meal threshold notes that the threshold rises with age and rises again with inactivity. So the bar is not fixed. The bar you cleared without trying at 40 is higher now, and it climbed exactly as you slowed down. A younger body forgives a small breakfast. Yours submits an invoice. So let me steelman the model you were handed, properly, in its own language. The standard adult recommendation for protein is 0.8 grams per kilo of body weight per day. That number is not lazy. It came out of careful nitrogen balance work. It is defensible, and it is enough to stop a healthy adult from losing ground. But look at who it was built for, because that is where it breaks. It was built to prevent deficiency in a general adult population. It was not built for a 70-year-old in a deliberate calorie deficit trying to hold on to lean tissue. In 2013, an international expert group called ProtAge reviewed the aging evidence and recommended that adults over 65 average at least 1.0 to 1.2 grams per kilo per day, more if they exercise regularly. Higher than the general recommendation. For the same reason, a heavier bridge needs more steel. The recommendation is not false, it is incomplete. And the missing variable is the one nothing on your label reports. Distribution. Not how much protein crossed your lips in 24 hours, but how many separate times you cleared the threshold. There is no line on any food package for that. No column in any app, no question your annual checkup asks. Which is how you end up watching the neighbor who does less than you get more than you. He is not trying harder, his breakfast is just heavier than yours. So the fix has a name, and it has 4 steps, and the name is PACE. P for prime, A for at every window, C for constant calories, E for earn it. The word is not decoration. The entire point of this video is that your protein has a pace, not a total, and each of those 4 letters kills exactly one of the 4 interceptors I just named. Now the contract, so you know what you are waiting for. Before this video ends, I will give you all 4 letters, with the exact grams, the exact placement in your day, a floor, an ideal, and a ceiling for each one. Nothing held back for a link or a purchase. I am not giving them to you yet, and the reason is practical. Handed the steps first, you will do the 2 that are easy and skip the 2 that carry the effect. You need to see what each one is killing before it means anything. There is one objection that could end this video right here, so I want it in the open. You are thinking, I already eat plenty of protein. I have eggs some mornings, meat most evenings. I feel perfectly strong, and this does not describe me. I believe that you feel fine. That is the trouble. Feeling fine is not evidence in this specific domain, because the loss is designed to be invisible. Muscle leaves slowly, in grams, not in pounds. It leaves symmetrically, so nothing looks lopsided in the mirror, and it leaves from your reserve first, which is capacity you only use on the bad day, the stumble, the illness, the week in hospital. You do not notice a reserve until the moment you need it, and if you want the proof that this hides from you, it arrived recently, and it is not flattering to my own argument. A pooled analysis published this year in Nutrition Journal took 191 older adults across 3 separate weight loss trials, average age 65. Raising protein intake from 0.87 to 1.06 grams per kilo per day was significantly associated with more lean tissue in the arms and legs. And it was associated with nothing else, not body weight, not body fat, not grip strength, not walking speed, and not the chair stand test. Sit with that for a second, because it is the most useful thing in this video. The change is real, and the scale will not report it. So if you have been grading yourself on the number under your feet, you have been reading the wrong instrument, and you may have quit something that was working. The fix does not come through eating less. It does not come through eating more. It does not come through a supplement you have to buy. It comes through the arrangement, not the amount. So let me start the clock, because your day has windows, they open in a fixed order, and each one closes whether or not you used it. Window 1. Your first meal. You wake after 8 or 9 hours without food. Overnight, your body has been running maintenance on borrowed material. There is no meal in the tank, and no signal to build. This is the largest gap in your 24 hours, and it is the window with the highest bar, because the threshold climbs with age. It is also the cheapest window to fix, and that is not a small thing. It is one meal, at home, on your own schedule, with nobody watching. What that means for you tomorrow is simple. You get one high-value shot before 9 in the morning, and it costs you no extra time. Window 1 closes when you push the plate away. There is no credit carried forward. Window 2, your middle meal. Lunch is where most people are honest but light. Soup, or a sandwich that is mostly bread, or a bowl of leftovers that is mostly the sides. This window is easier than breakfast in one way, and harder in another. Easier because you are genuinely hungry by now. Harder because you are more likely to be out, or busy, or eating whatever is nearest. Tomorrow, this one takes a single decision made in advance rather than in the moment. Window 2 closes at the same speed as window 1. Window 3, your evening meal. This is the window everybody already clears, and often clears twice over. The meat is on this plate, and the portion is generous. This is where the whole day's protein has been quietly hiding, which is why nothing is wrong with your dinner and nothing more is required of it. That is the strangest instruction in this video, and it is genuine. Your evening meal is already doing its job. Window 3 closes and the day is over. 3 chances, in a fixed order, no rollover, and no way to reach back. So the convergence, the state your day has been sitting in for years, looks like this. 3 kettles, 1 boiled. Add it up on paper and the day looks respectable, because the total is respectable. Live it and your body registered 1 anabolic signal out of a possible 3, and it registered that one at the hour when you were about to lie down for 8 hours. The day closes regardless of what you do, which is what makes this a sequencing problem and not an effort problem. So let me pay off the provocation I opened with and hand you one piece you can run tomorrow morning without waiting for the rest. Stop counting your daily protein. Start counting your breakfast. 20 to 30 grams of protein in your first meal of the day, cleared as one meal rather than gathered across a morning. That is the single component, and if you take nothing else from the next 20 minutes, take that. Understand what makes it the keystone, because the reason is precise. You are almost certainly eating enough protein already, and your total is probably closer to adequate than you think. The protein was never missing from your day. It was arriving in one lump at the hour when your body had the least use for it, while the earlier windows were paid in coins. It was the arrangement, not the amount. Nothing new has to enter your kitchen. Something already in it has to move. Which is the kettle again. You have been carrying the same amount of water all along, tipping a splash into each of the first 2 kettles and the rest into the third, then wondering why you got 1 cup of tea out of a full jug. Pour to the line 3 times, and the jug does not need to get any bigger. So the numbers on that one component, floor to ceiling. The floor is 20 grams in the first meal. That is the bottom of the range the review describes. And a floor that you actually hit every morning beats an ideal you hit twice a week. The ideal is 30 grams, the top of that range, because the threshold rises with age and you are on the high side of it. The ceiling is real too, because past about 30 grams in one sitting, you are no longer buying threshold, you are just buying calories, and this is a video about losing fat. More is not better here, more is only more. One safety note attached to that number, and it is not a formality. If you have kidney disease, this changes. The Prot-AG age group that raised the target for older adults wrote an explicit exception into their own recommendation for people with severe kidney disease who are not on dialysis. If that is you, or you are not certain, this is worth asking your doctor before you change anything about your protein. Now the instruction that cancels all of this, which you will hear within a week of starting. Somebody sensible will tell you the timing does not matter, that protein is protein, and as long as you hit your daily number by bedtime, your body sorts the rest out. And I want to give that argument its due, because it is not stupid and it is not fringe. Every dietary guideline on Earth is written as a daily figure. Amino acids do circulate for hours. Your body genuinely does keep a small floating pool of them, so the idea that a day averages itself out is a reasonable thing to believe. But go back to the trial I opened with, because it settles this in the only way that counts. 2 groups of obese older adults, both eating 600 calories a day under maintenance for 13 weeks, both lifting 3 times a week. Both lost the same weight and the same fat. The group taking a protein-enriched supplement, 21 grams of protein in 150 calories, ran at 1.11 grams per kilo per day and finished with 400 grams more muscle in their arms and legs. The control group ran at 0.85 and finished with 500 grams less. That was a randomized controlled trial, double-blinded, and the difference between the groups was statistically significant. Note what the supplement actually was. 21 grams of protein, arriving as its own event, 10 times a week. That is not a magic compound. That is a threshold being cleared, on purpose, in meals that were previously under the line. And count the cost of believing the timing does not matter. You are already doing the hard part, already in the deficit, already walking, already refusing the second helping. That is 13 weeks of genuinely unpleasant work in the trial, and it bought one group muscle and the other group less of it. The effort is not the expensive part. Spending the effort in the wrong order is. There is a second cancelling instruction, and it is gentler, which makes it worse. Eat less. All of it. Less. If the belly is the problem, shrink the plate. A meta-analysis in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition pooled 24 controlled trials across 1,063 adults, comparing a higher protein diet against a standard protein diet at the same calories. Same calories. The higher protein arm lost a little more weight, lost about 870 grams more fat, and held on to about 430 grams more lean tissue. That analysis ran across general adults rather than a purely older group, so I will call the size of the effect modest and mechanistic rather than a promise made to you specifically. But the direction is not modest, and the direction is the instruction. At the same calories, the plate that carries more protein takes more of the loss out of fat and less of it out of you. Smaller is not the goal. Better composed is. One ask before the sequence itself. Comment the word curious if any of these 4 caught you off guard so far. I read them, and it tells me which of the 4 to take apart properly in its own video. Now the part I got wrong for years, because I am not narrating this from the outside. I had every component right. I ate a serious dinner. I lifted. I walked. I could have recited the daily target from memory, and I hit it most days. I had the order wrong, and I had it wrong for about 4 years. Run my old morning against the 4, and I failed all of them. My breakfast was oats and fruit, so interceptor 1, clean miss. I graded my day as a total on a phone screen, so interceptor 2. I was not hungry before 10, and I treated that as a helpful sign rather than a habit, so interceptor 3. And on the days I did not lift, the protein still arrived on schedule, with nothing waiting for it, which is interceptor 4. 4 for 4. A well-behaved morning that was quietly cancelling the afternoon. And when it changed, one variable changed. Not the total, which barely moved, not the training, which was already there, and not a supplement, which I did not add. The first meal of the day crossed the line instead of sitting under it. Same food, different order, different body. That is the diagnosis. So the sequence. P is for prime, and it occupies your first meal, from waking until roughly 9 in the morning. Prime kills interceptor 1, the praised breakfast, and the rule is one line. Your first meal clears the threshold before anything else in your day is allowed to be interesting. Concretely, that means a protein food is the first thing on the plate, and the rest gets built around it. Eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, fish. Last night's meat, cold, which is allowed and always has been. A protein shake if mornings are rushed, and that is a convenience, not a compromise. And you keep the oats, you keep the fruit, you keep the toast, you keep the tea. Nothing leaves the plate, something joins it. The execution trick is to look up the protein in the 2 or 3 breakfasts you actually eat, once, from a packet or a phone, and write those numbers on a card by the kettle. You will never look them up again, because you eat the same handful of breakfasts on rotation, like everybody does. The mechanism is the line in the kettle. Below it, the meal maintains you, and above it, the meal builds. The review that defines this is a review of controlled feeding studies, and it puts that line at roughly 20 to 30 grams in one meal for the maximum response. Miss it, and you have not had a small win. You have had none, and you paid full price in calories for it. Floor, 20 grams. Ideal, 30. Ceiling, 30. Because past that, you are buying calories rather than signal. The sequence so far is one line long. Clear the threshold at your first meal. Prime is done before 9. A is for at every window, and it occupies the rest of the day, at your middle meal and your evening meal. At every window kills interceptor 2, the daily total, and the rule is that each meal is graded on its own, because your body grades each meal on its own. This is the arrangement, not the amount, made into a habit. Concretely, 3 meals, 3 separate clearances. Not 200 grams of chicken at 7 in the evening, standing in for the 2 windows you slept through. Not a total that averages out, but 3 separate arrivals, spaced by hours. And you are allowed to miss one, because this is a sequence, not a rule of purity. 2 windows out of 3 beats 1, and 1 beats none, and the day you clear 2 is not a failed day. Where that daily total lands, if you want the figure, is the PROT-AGE consensus target for adults over 65, 1.0 to 1.2 grams per kilo of body weight per day, with at least 1.2 if you exercise regularly. Notice that clearing 3 windows tends to put you there without any arithmetic at all. The evidence underneath this one is observational, so I will grade it honestly. In 106 physically active women, aged 65 to 70, those eating below 0.8 grams per kilo per day carried significantly less muscle. Measured against the higher bar of 1.1, the women below it also had significantly higher odds of physical function limitations. That is an association, not a controlled feeding trial. It is still the shape of everything else here. Skip a window and you did not lose a meal. You lost a signal that does not come back. Floor, 2 windows. Ideal, 3. Ceiling, 3. Because a 4th eating occasion is usually just a snack wearing a costume. The sequence so far: clear the first meal, then clear each one after it on its own. 3 bars, 3 chances, no rollover. C is for constant calories, and it runs across the whole day rather than at any 1 hour. Constant calories kills interceptor 3, the fear that adding protein means adding weight. The rule is that protein swaps in, it does not stack on. Concretely, when the eggs arrive, something of similar size leaves. The second slice of toast, the honey, the glass of juice. You are not adding a course to breakfast. You are rebuilding the one you already eat. And you are owed a permission here. You do not have to be hungry in the morning to do this. A smaller high-protein breakfast beats a large one you resent by lunchtime. The meta-analysis in Advances in Nutrition is the reason this letter exists. Acutely, extra protein does not suppress your appetite enough to pay for its own calories. But across the longer trials, protein intake rose by about 0.29 grams per kilo per day, with no significant change in total daily calories at the end. Left alone, people swap. Told to add, people add. Stack it instead of swapping, and you have built a slightly better body composition inside a slightly bigger body. Floor, hold your calories level. Ideal, hold them level while the protein rises. Ceiling, do not cut deeper than you already were to make room for it. The sequence so far: first meal, every window, same calories. The plate changes, the size does not. E is for earn it, and it sits outside your meals entirely, 2 or 3 times in a week. Earn it kills interceptor 4, protein arriving with no demand waiting for it. The rule is that protein is a delivery, and a delivery needs somewhere to go. Concretely, resistance work, not running and not more walking, though keep the walking. Something that asks a muscle to move a load, 2 or 3 times a week. Bands, a pair of dumbbells, or sitting down and standing up from a dining chair 10 times. Slowly, which is resistance training, whether or not it flatters you to call it that. The meta-analysis in sports medicine that pooled 9 controlled trials found protein on top of resistance training built significantly more fat-free mass than the training alone. And the trial I have quoted all video had its participants lifting 3 times a week. That was not decoration in the design. That was the demand the protein answered. Protein with nothing asking for it is a lorry arriving at a locked warehouse. The load is fine. Nobody is unloading it. Miss this letter and the other 3 still work, just smaller. Floor, 2 sessions a week. Ideal, 3, which is what the trial ran. Ceiling, 3, because this is a signal, not a sport, and you have nothing to prove to a barbell at 65. The full sequence: prime the first meal, clear every window, keep calories constant, and earn it 2 or 3 times a week. 4 letters, 3 windows, 1 order. And I promised you a ceiling near the start, so here it is, from the same consensus paper. 1.0 to 1.2 grams per kilo per day is the standing target. 1.2 or above if you exercise regularly. 1.2 to 1.5 is reserved for people who are acutely or chronically ill, and that is a clinical situation, not an ambition. There is no bonus tier above that in this evidence. Chasing one that does not exist is the most common way sensible people turn a good plan into an expensive one. Now, the single mistake that invalidates everything above, and I will give it to you in one sentence before I explain it. You add the protein and you never remove anything. That is the whole failure. The eggs join the oats, the toast stays, the juice stays, and the deficit you were carefully running quietly closes. 4 weeks later, the composition is better and the waistband is tighter, and you conclude that protein made you gain weight. It did not. Addition made you gain weight, and the fix is mechanical. Every gram that joins the plate displaces something already on it. The second mistake is smaller, and I want to grade it honestly rather than pile on. Chasing 30 grams so hard that you skip the meal on the mornings you cannot reach it. 20 grams is a cleared threshold. 0 is a missed window. The fix is a card by the kettle, with your 2 easiest options on it, so a tired morning still has a flaw. The third mistake is quitting at 4 weeks because the scale did not move. Go back to that pooled analysis, where more protein was associated with more lean tissue in the arms and legs, and with no change in body weight at all. The instrument you have been reading was never going to show you this. The fix is to change instruments: a jar lid, a chair, a flight of stairs, and how you feel on the third day of a bad week. And the strangest part is that the easiest way to clear tomorrow's first window is decided tonight, at the meal you already clear. Let me put the clock away for a second, because the mechanics are not the point. You were not lazy. You were following the instructions you were given, in good faith, for years, and the instructions were incomplete rather than false. Nobody told you the order, because the order does not fit on a label. The whole video boils down to a few honest moves. 4 letters, 3 windows, 1 order. Prime your first meal past 20 to 30 grams. Clear every window on its own, instead of grading the day as a total. Swap the protein in, rather than stacking it on. And earn it 2 or 3 times a week, with something that asks a muscle to work. Check my homework. Each claim traces to a linked study in the description, including the one that found no change on the scale. My job is to explain the science clearly. Your clinician's job is to fit it to you. Both matter. So stop counting your daily protein and start counting your breakfast, because it was always the arrangement, not the amount. Tomorrow you wake up and you already know what the first plate looks like. In the next episode, we tackle the other end of the day, where the same threshold decides whether what you built this morning is still there on Friday.